Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lexie Smyth. I'm one of the campaign managers here at Barnes & Noble, and with me today is our frontlist buyer, Brenda Allison. We are absolutely thrilled to be in conversation with Fredrik Backman, the author of our May Book Club selection, My Friends. If you sent questions in via the Eventbrite, Brenda and I have them. You can also submit questions during the talk via the Q&A module, which Brenda and I will be moderating. As a reminder, this is going to be a conversation with spoilers. If you haven't finished the book, you can always come back later, as this will be posted on the Barnes & Noble YouTube channel later. All right, let's talk about the book. Fredrik,
All right.
My Friends is about many things: the power of art, both making it and what it means to other people, being young, the gift of friendship. There are multiple timelines, a full cast of characters as well. And we've gotten many questions from readers, and we all want to know, which thread did you start working from when you began writing this novel?
Which thread?
Yes.
It's the process is chaos, 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 chaos book. That's my only. It's my only way of doing things, and I wish it was differently. And I think I secretly hope every time I've started a book that this time it's going to be different, and this time I'm just going to figure it out to begin with, and I'm just going to write in a straight line, and it never ends up that way. So I started with the kids on the pier. I started with a draft that was only set 25 years ago. There was no now story. Now there's a backstory 25 years ago, and there's a now story. But there was no now story. There was only the story of these kids 25 years ago, and it was. I showed it to a couple of people because I felt that it was something, and I knew that it was different from the things that I had written before. I just wasn't aware of how different it was, and I showed it to a few people, and they reacted like you react to, when you don't want to insult someone's cooking. You say things like, "This is interesting. Was this a conscious choice, or are we experimenting, or?" It's so I just and my wife, it was a long, long story. But my wife sat me down and said, it's not that they don't like it. It's just that it's really, really dark. It's all dark, and there's no hope, and there's no redemption, and the backstory of the book is a lot about violence. It's about these kids who live very close to violence, and in the first draft. We like the first draft, I had the reader being present for all the violence. The reader was in the room when the violence happened, and now it's you find out about the violence afterwards. You find out about the violence the day after, but the violence was right there in the first draft, and there was, like my wife would tell me, there was no hope, there was no redemption, and and she sat me down and she said, "This is because you're in a dark place right now, and not as a father and a husband, like you're semi-functional, as the best we can hope for at this case. But it's just I was in a dark, dark place creatively, and the writing thing is a huge part of my identity. It's a huge part of my. It's not for publishing books. For this is my tool to make sense of the world. This is my coping mechanism. This is how I struggle with the voices in my head, and so it was a whole thing. So I took that for my wife. I went out into the forest, had a breakdown. Then I came back and I figured out the now story. But that was the real breakdown, and then the backstory was too dark. But that was me trying to figure something out, and that's the thing, because I assume that there are people listening into this who want to be writers, and the thing is that you need to have the breakdowns. You need to get lost a little bit, because that's when you find something that is actually going to make the book dynamic. That's when you find something that's going to make the book true and not feel like it's produced, if that makes sense. It's the way you can hear two people sing, and one person sings a song perfectly and perfectly, went to school and learned how to sing pitch perfect, and you feel nothing. And then someone else sings the same song, and the voice is broken, and the person has been smoking for 30 years, and nothing is perfect, but you cry because you can hear that the song is about heartbreak, and you can hear her heart breaking as she sings, and then it's something. So you have to go looking for that. There has to be a few breakdowns. There has to be a few, it has to be difficult for it to mean something to someone else, I think. Unfortunately, because I wish it was easier. I wish I could just figure it. I wish I could just figure it out. I hear about these authors who say in interviews like, "Oh, this story came to me and I wrote like in a fever for 2 months and I had a first draft." And I'm like, that's never happened. Never ever happened to me. Like I've never written in like that kind of. I write in panic.
And what you found was eventually really beautiful and hopeful, but also heartbreaking. And I want to talk about some of the characters, some of the lines. It's also remarkably funny. And my friends opens with this line, which I read out loud to my husband when I read it. Louisa is a teenager, the best kind of human. The evidence for this is very simple. Little children think teenagers are the best humans, and teenagers think teenagers are the best humans. The only people who don't think that teenagers are the best humans are adults, which is obviously because adults are the worst kind of humans. You have a real knack for writing young people. Beartown is one of my all-time favorite books, and that novel is also full of fully formed, heartbreaking teenagers. And Louisa joins the pantheon of Backman teenagers, and she's a wonderful character. I thought she was fully formed when we first met her, but as I read on, I felt like layers kept peeling back. And as you were talking about that writing process as well, tell us about writing her and how her voice came to you.
Well, I mean, I never try to write young people because I can't. I mean, it's going to be what I usually tell people. If I try to write young people, it's going to be the meme with the, hello, fellow kids, the hat turned backwards, and this. It's going to be, it's not going to work. And it's not going to work if I try to be cool, because I wasn't even cool when I was supposed to be cool. I wasn't even young when I was young, I think. And so I had to, I tried to find another way into everything. And the kids on the pier 25 years ago, I know them because I know how they talked, because that's 25 years ago. And I grew up with those kids. So I had those kids around me, not literally those kids, because they're not, one character is not one person, but one character might be 10 or 20 real people. Because you take little bits and pieces of you take the humor of one and the mannerisms of one, and the capability of violence from another. It's you put it together, you find charisma in some, and it's you steal from a lot of people. It's like what I usually say, it's orange juice. It's take a lot of oranges to make the juice. It takes 20 real people to make one good character, because I think that's where you find the dynamic. That's when it becomes a person, because if you kept adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and adding, and you've added things, you've added so many things that people who read it will say, well, that wasn't necessary. We can take this out. We can take this. No, that's what makes it true. The little stupid little details. Like he doesn't like coriander. It's like cilantro. Cilantro is the English word. Like he doesn't like cilantro. It's important. Like it's not important, but it's important because that's how we get to know him. That's what makes him feel like an actual person. And but with Louisa, it was different because I didn't know her because she's 18 now. And I don't, I don't know how 18-year-olds talk to each other. So that was a real issue for a long time. And I tried to find my way into that. But then I had this thing, well, she's a little younger than, she's going to act a little younger than her age because she has been through so much darkness in her life that her defense mechanism is like desperately staying a child. Like it's almost a rebellion for her that I refuse to be an adult because she learned at an early age that adults cannot be trusted. So I felt like she's going to be a little younger than her age. She's going to be a little more childish than her age. And, luckily enough, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and her friends are at our house constantly and in my car constantly. And so I hear this, and they talk like they're a little older. So I felt I think I can combine. I think I know how to find the voice now, and it's not the voice of, because Louisa, I didn't have to find the voice of her talking to other 18-year-olds because most of the book she's hanging out with this, she's going on this highly dysfunctional road trip with a neurotic man in his 40s. And they don't like each other, and they annoy the hell out of each other, and they don't understand each other, and they would much rather not be with each other. And I felt, well, this I know. That voice, like the voice she would have in reference to this neurotic man in his 40s, that voice I know because I have these 12, 13-year-olds, and I'm the neurotic man in his 40s. So I know, like, the condescension in their voice and the way that they the way that they point out, very natural, it comes very natural to them to point out all of your faults and imperfections. Like they talk about the way you dress, like you didn't dress like this on purpose, like it was a mistake. Like they explain jokes to you in the most condescending way. Like they make a joke and they all laugh, and then they remember that I'm in the car too, and they turn to me and they say, "Oh, there's this thing called TikTok. Like I'm 900 years old." And that condescension, I just found that and felt like, I can figure this out. I can use that voice, and I can give that voice to Lisa because that voice I know. And so I didn't write her like a teenager with other teenagers. I wrote her like a teenager who is hanging out with someone who is, close, 20, 25 years older. And being from another, I wrote her like hanging out with a dinosaur. Like I wrote her with that condescension and annoyance, and I think that's if it works, it's because of that.
Something that I really loved was the way you described the impact that the painting, The One of the Sea, has on Louisa. I can think of a few pieces of art that made a similar impression on me around her age. And I'm curious if there was a work of art that impacted you in a similar way as a young person, and if there are any that impact you that way now.
No, I really wish I had a solid answer to this, and maybe I should have invented an answer to this by now. Because I should have figured out that there should be questions like this. But that was another problem that I had writing, and I'm just trying to explain it because I know that there are, people who want to write, and they, to the best of my ability, I want to explain like the chaos of the process. But I'm always trying to figure out a point of view that feels true to me, that feels like I'm not faking it. And with art, the problem is that I don't know anything about art. I didn't grow up connected to art. I grew up connected to books and video games and TV shows and movies, and those I looked for stories wherever I went. I looked for I looked for a vehicle to escape reality, because I didn't like reality at all. Still don't. But I'm trying to get more connected to it now, because there are people here that I have to, family members and dogs and stuff that I have to, responsibilities and but as a kid, I just fled. I just didn't want to be around reality. So I didn't, but I wasn't connected to art because I didn't go to museums, and that was not a thing that I grew up with. I still feel I'm going into a museum now. I'm still waiting for someone to like tap me on the shoulder and like, sir, we can't have like you clearly don't belong here. You look the wrong way. You've been looking at the poster of the fire exits for 15 minutes. We can't have you in here. You don't know what you're doing. And so I struggled so much with finding like, how can I tell this story about an artist and about art and make that true when I don't know anything about it, and I don't think I can research it. Like I think to be able to write from an artist's perspective, or to write from like someone very knowledgeable about art from their perspective, I think I have to have really, really, been intensely interested in art for years. I don't think I can fake it. So but I figured it out because my wife loves art, and she studied art history for a while. And where we met, that was the first times that I went to museums, and she still, wherever we go in the world, she takes me and the kids to museums, and we look at art, and then we argue about it. And that's how we get to know each other. And we go to the movies the same way. Like we go to the movies, we see a movie, and then we argue about it. And that's how we get to know each other. That's how we understand each other. Like, we go to see June, and my wife and my son, they walk out of there like they had a religious experience. And, my daughter turns to me and I ask her, like, what did you think about the movie? And she said, long. And then we are, the whole family has an argument, and that's how we get to know each other, because we're very, very different people. And I think when my wife and I met, I got to know her through culture. That's how I figured her out. I figured her out by understanding, the things that got her excited. And while I was writing this, we were at a museum. And I figured out that I don't have to write this from the point of view of the artist who painted the painting. And I don't have to write it from the point of view of the person who looks at the painting and understands the painting. I can write this from the point of view from the person who looks at the person who's looking at the painting. Because that person I know. And I love the way my wife loves things. I love the way my kids love things. I mean, it's the best thing I know when one of them gets excited. Like when they get really, really excited about something, like a song or a video game, or my wife turns a corner in a museum and she sees something that blows her away. That's that wind, like. You can see it in her. You can see the whiplash from being excited, and those are my favorite moments. I wrote the entire book from that. Like the entire book is written from the perspective of someone who doesn't know art, but has been living very, very close to someone who loves it.
Talking about love and how we get to know and love the people in our lives. At one point, Ted thinks and wants to say to Louisa, but doesn't, something that has struck with me. And it uses a word you already used in this conversation. And he says, love is chaos. And I would love for you to explain what that means to you, and how do we live with that chaos that is love in our lives?
I mean, well, it is. I mean, it's this constant, at least there's always been to me. I mean, it's always this constant frustration of trying to figure each other out. And it's also chaos, because I think what I was going for in that instance is also that there's a difference between falling in love and love. These are two different things, because I'm 44 years old. It's falling in love is one thing, but that, I mean, no, I mean, not to belittle the feeling, because the feeling is fantastic, but falling in love, that's easy. That just happens. There's no work. There's just, you fall in love like head over heels, and it's fantastic, but it's not conscious. It's not work. It does, it's most often not even a choice. It just happens. Love is different, because love is that's the thing that's a long relationship, and that's different. And to me, it's way better. It's way better. I mean, I would take the love after 5, 10. I've been together with my wife for 18 years. I mean, I would take that feeling over anything. But there's a lot of things that go into that, like a lot more. And there's a lot of, and it's not only to love another person, but it's also like accepting that this person loves me, and now this person knows everything about me. And not just the things that I want them to know, but all the shit too, like all the embarrassing stuff, all the things that you're ashamed of, like all your weaknesses, all your double standards, and your mistakes, and your hypocrisy, and like every time you've been embarrassing while drunk, and like they know everything. And it's hard. It's really, really hard to let someone stay that close for that amount of time. It's super hard. And when we talk about, like, because you're young, you don't want to hear that I have to put relationship is work, but the work is not on the relationship. The work is on you. That's the hard part. Like, the work is not on the relationship, or the work is on you to like constantly try to be better for them, and constantly trying to understand them, and constantly trying to understand yourself, so that you can explain yourself to them. Because if you're 18 years old and you fall in love, the thing that you don't take into account is that you will change, and they will too. Like, you're gonna evolve. You're gonna find new things that you like and dislike, and you're gonna change, and you're gonna move your life in a different direction. And like, a lot of things will happen, and you have no idea who you are gonna be as parents, because you're gonna have new identities as parents. You're not gonna stay the same. No one does. So you're going to change, and so you have to put that work into yourself all of the time, and to understanding you and understanding them, and then trying to explain yourself to them, and trying to figure out a way to help them explain themselves to you, and be open to that change constantly, and getting to know each other over and over and over and over and over again. And that's the work.
And
it's chaos.
Yeah, that is chaos. That's what I was about to say. For a book about a lot of heavy things, it sure is funny. When your knife's hiding place was ruined, Ted decides to make a joke. And I live with a 10 and a 12-year-old, so I'm going to have to talk about the importance of farts. So can you talk a bit about how this friend group uses humor and the acknowledgement of the ridiculousness of being a human in the novel?
Yeah, well, my formula for this book would usually sometimes I start with the humor and I add the darkness, and this time around I started with the humor, just started with the darkness and I added the humor and I sprinkled fart jokes on top. And I think there are well above 20 fart jokes in the books, but I think I think my editor, Peter Borland, my American editor, I think he took out at least 20 more. I think we fought about the last 27 or whatever it is. It's it was important to me. It was important to me because the fart jokes are important because they're silly, and silliness is for children. And these 14, 15-year-olds, it's mentioned very early that this is their last summer as children. Mm-hmm. And someone said, when I said that in an interview, they said, yeah, and it's so scary because you don't know when it's happening that it's your last summer as children. And I said, but these kids do. Like, they know that this is their last summer as children because they live very, very close to violence and darkness. And they know that it's a countdown now to a catastrophe. And they know that this is their last summer as children. And they're like clinging on to it. Like it's a rebellion, just like it is for Louisa. It's a rebellion to stay children. It's a fight to stay, to keep that right to be childish and stupid and irresponsible and out of your mind and go in shopping carts down steep hills and put fireworks in mailboxes and all the stupid stuff. It's and it was so important that they had this back and forth between each other of like constant jokes and constant banter and constant little like lovingly jabs. It was super important. It was important that they laughed. And someone said that during the editing process, there was someone who read it, and because you have proofreaders, and there are a lot of people who come in, and someone mentioned, well, they thought that the word laugh was used too much, like the word laugh, and I was like, that's the word, because I still have my three best friends I've known for 30 plus years. My three best friends are my three best friends from when I was a teenager, and I still have them. And I had a lot of other friends as a teenager, but I lost a few of them. One of my best friends killed himself when I was 19, and he had an immense amount of darkness in him, and he was the funniest person I've ever known. I've never known anyone as funny as him, because that was his whole defense against the darkness. That was his only weapon against the demons. It was just jokes. And I carry that. I carry that everywhere. I carry that. I think about him. I think about him at least once a week, and I'm 44. I was 19 when it happened. It never goes away. It never leaves me. Like the guilt of that, the constant, could I have done something differently? Could I have changed something? It's just constant. It never leaves. It never goes away. And, when I write jokes, I write them, like when I wrote, like usually most of the jokes I write are to make my wife laugh. Like I would say 95% of every joke I've ever written is just to try to make her laugh, because it's my favorite sound. But with these kids, a lot of the jokes was also, maybe I could have made, would this have made him laugh? Like, is this stupid enough? And he liked stupid jokes. He liked fart jokes. He liked the, so it comes from that. It comes from, like, my whole relationship with my three best friends is we went on a road trip a couple of years ago, and one of them said afterwards that, I don't remember what we did. I don't remember where we went. I don't remember what we ate. I just remember us sitting in the car laughing. And probably it's something really, really stupid, and possibly a fart. And we're grown men, and it's still like, that's still how we, it's still our only, like our deepest way of communicating is laughter. So that's where that came from, and that's also where the line came from, that there's a kind of laughter that they only have for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain kind of laughter that's like, it's been locked up, waiting for these people, and that's how I feel about my friends.
I love that so much. I have friends that I share that kind of sense of humor with, and it's so special. One of my favorite parts of the book is also the way that this friend group really tries to make each other feel a little less alone, like when the boys wear dresses to the concert. And I'd love for you to talk a bit about, why it was important to you to write about that loneliness, but also that sense of belonging when you really do find your people, because you write about it in such a visceral way that really reminded me of when I found my people when I was young.
Yeah, I tried to find that. I went looking for that emotion of when you find something, when it just hits you, when it overwhelms you, and that feeling of, because I feel it's the same with friendship and love and art and all of these things. You're at a certain age, you're a teenager, and you find them, and it's immediately like you've had them for your entire life. Immediately, it's like, I cannot remember a time without this. Like, I cannot fathom that there was a time before I had these friends. I cannot understand that there was a time that I didn't know that I love art. There was a time that I didn't know that there was a time where I didn't know that this song exists.
Mm-hmm.
I went looking for that. I just went looking for that feeling, and I went looking for that. That you have when you're really young. The loving a friend and falling in love is, when you're young, these are two very close emotions. Like there's a line in the book that the like infatuation and friendship they're light from the same star, and they're so close when you're young, and it doesn't matter. You don't care, but it's the same thing. Like you're yeah, you and your friends go separate ways at that crossroads at the end of the day, and your skin goes cold. So I was just looking for that. I was just looking for that one of us sentiment, and it's a little. I share an office with another author, and he's brilliant, and he's the smartest guy I know, and he writes historical fiction. Two people cannot be more different than we are. Like it's impossible. Everyone who meets us, like, how are the two of you friends? But we only talk about writing. That's the only thing that we have. We love writing the same way. We look at it the same way. We look at the craft the same way. And we meet a bunch of creative people. Like whoever reaches out to us who is a creative in Stockholm, like we'll go to lunch. It's a writer, it's a musician, it's a comedian. It doesn't matter. And 99 times out of 100, we come back, and Nicholas looks at me and says, "No, this was nice. I mean, if we can help them out, we're going to help them out. But, not one of us." Because we had this lunch, and Nicholas and I was like, "Yeah, you're not like you're a high functional normal person. Like we are not. Like you have to. Like we are not. You don't understand the level of issues that we have. We are broken people. Our brains don't work properly. Like you're never gonna be able to put up with us. And then once out of 100 times, I have a friend who's a comedian, and he's annoyingly young. I think he's 28 years old. So he's closer in age to my son than he is to me, which my son happily pointed out. And he's annoying. He's 28 years old, but we got in contact somehow. I don't remember how. And I said, "You want to come out to the office and hang out?" And he said, "Sure." And he came out and he sat down, and I think he sat there for 10 minutes, and he made a joke with an extremely narrow reference, and it was really, really stupid, but it was very, very smart. And Niklas just looked at me and said, "One of us." And he's one of our closest friends. And he comes out to the office once a week, and his wife says, "I love it when he goes to your office because he comes home like excited and happy. He's like a golden retriever when he's been, out in the country with the two of you." And that's what we're looking for. You know it when you see it. If you have a friend group, all of a sudden one person comes into that friend group, and you're all like, "Yeah, one of us." Mm-hmm. There's going to be a joke. There's going to be a line. There's going to be a reference to a TV show that you're like, "You're one of us. You're out of your mind too." You're weird. You're our kind of weird. That's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. I love it. We've talked a lot about friend relationships, but my friends generously gives us not only the perspective of the children in the novel and the friends, but also talks about the relationship between parent and children. And at one point, Ted's mom opines, "That's the worst part of being a parent, that almost everyone does their best, but almost all fail regardless." And oof, I felt that deeply as a parent myself. How do you write about the difficulty of being a parent?
I look for my own worst mistakes. Mm. It's the only way I know how to write it. It's I think when you write, it's easy that you fall into the trap of writing an idealized version of yourself, which is, this guy is like me, but he knows karate and he solves crimes. It's that you write about someone who's like you but way better. And I try to do the opposite. I try to look for the worst in me, and I put that in the characters, and then because the good in the characters, the great things in the character, the smart and profound things that they say, that I find all that in other people. I find that in the people that I admire, the people I have around me, the people I aspire to be like. That's not the hard part. It's not difficult for me to find the best in people. It's hard to find the weaknesses and the mistakes and the faults and the things that keep you up at night. And I find all that in myself. So everything about parenting is probably, one way or another from me. It's either the things that haunt me, the things that I think about, the things that, keep me awake at night, or it's, all the things that I'm afraid that I will become, like all the things that I'm afraid that the things that you're afraid, like, if I don't watch I could become that. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to stop yourself constantly. You have to listen to yourself constantly. You have to, so it's not like when I describe the best parents, that's when I describe the people I aspire to be. But when I it's, I tell my kids all the time when we, It's the only thing I have. Like the only two things that I have given my kids in abundance is that I've spent a lot of time with them. Like I've been here because I made that a priority, because I figured out that I'm going to mess up a lot. So I need a lot of time to make up for it. But the other thing is that I've told them that I'm sorry a lot. From an early age, I tried to be very, very clear, like to admit when I was wrong. And admit to them that I'm going to mess up a lot. Like I'm going to be wrong a lot. I'm going to, you came home, you told me this thing, and I was stressed out, and I overreacted, and I raised my voice, and I went like, oh, and it turned out you were 100% right. And then they're never going to learn how to. They're never going to learn how to say they're sorry or admit their mistakes if you go around pretending like you're without fault.
That's right.
That's where it comes from. But it comes from me struggling. It's hard. It's incredibly hard. Hard enough trying to be a person. But trying to be a parent, it's insanely hard. Most of the time, it's like very often, I tell my kids all the time when we're in a situation, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know if I yell at you or be supportive. I don't know. I don't know if you need boundaries or a hug. I have no idea. This is a first for me. So, I'm still figuring it out. And it's incredibly hard.
I think there's a lot of compassion in that, in admitting that you don't always know. And I really found that compassion was also a thread woven through this book. After yours father's accident, he and his mother stay to care for this man who abused them. Ted and Christian's mother, they become the adults that Louisa needed in her life. And in turn, she's able to pay it forward with another young artist as she gets older. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the role compassion plays in this book and with these characters who life's been pretty cruel to them, and yet they choose to treat other people with warmth and kindness. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way. It's the person that I aspire to be. It's not the person I am. I mean, I meet people once in a while where I have to explain, like, you seem to be under the misconception that I'm a nice person. I'm really not. Like, I'm not good with strangers. I'm not good with stress. I'm not a nice person in traffic. Like I'm very often told by my children that, there was another finger that you could have used in that traffic situation. You could have made other choices, Dad. You didn't have to raise your voice. You didn't have to do that. Like I struggle a lot. I don't like people. I like humans, but humans are the ones you choose, and you have maybe 7 of those. And people are everyone at the airport, and they're unbearable. And that's me struggling with me. That's me, aspiring to be something else, and that's me trying to, very often seeing the compassion that the people that you meet where you feel like you see them do something and you feel no one would have blamed you if you didn't show compassion in this instance. Like no one would have blamed you. Like that person was a jackass, and no one would have blamed you if you were a jackass back. And then you see someone who chooses kindness and compassion, and you can see how that changes the whole dynamic of the situation. And I go looking for that because I feel that's something lacking in me. So I look for that everywhere, and I whenever I see it, I collect those moments. So if there's compassion in my characters, it's because I've been collecting compassionate people.
That's wonderful.
Sorry, Lexie.
No, I was going to say that's wonderful.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the ending of the book. The reverse heist in the museum is such a fitting way for this novel to come to a close, to have the art shared with everyone. Did you always know that the book was going to end this way during the chaos book journey?
Not during the first three chaos, but during the last chaos before the book. I figured out that, once I figured out that it needs to be about this painting needs to be the story. Like, the painting needs to be, in ways, the main character. The painting is the only thing that is present all through. So I figured that there has to be, I had to figure out how will the story of the painting end, because that's the conclusion. That's the, I told there was a young writer who showed me a draft of something they made a while back, and I said, my only feedback is that you have to understand that a book doesn't necessarily have to have big drama. It doesn't have to be a big reveal. You have to trust that even a small reveal is a magic trick. Even a small reveal feels like, if you do it correctly, it still feels like a real thing. It still feels like, oh, it's her jacket. Oh, that's why he said that. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be, that's who did, that's the murderer. It doesn't have to be that's the murderer. It doesn't have to be, they were on planet Earth all along, but we thought they were at another planet, but they're actually here. The planet is Earth. It doesn't have to be that. But you have to take every reveal seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want the reader to take it seriously, then you have to take it seriously. You can't rush through it. You have to. So I had to figure out, all right, but what happens to painting? Where are we going with this? What's the conclusion? What's the big, because if I have this story for 400 pages where where Louisa is constantly battling with, what am I going to do when I get there?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do with the big choice that she has to make? She has to make this enormous choice, and the choices and my thing with it was that I don't want the choice to be what she chooses for the painting. I want it to be very clearly a choice that she makes for her. And she chooses to be an artist. That's the choice. She chooses to be, I choose to spend my life chasing creativity, which is a hard thing to do and a hard choice to make, and it's gonna make your life a lot more difficult than just have a proper education and get a normal job and go home at 5 o'clock and don't think about it. It's gonna be way better than sitting there at 3 a.m. constantly trying to figure out life and existence. And it's like, if you want to be an artist, it's gonna be hard, but she chooses to be an artist, and she takes the consequences of that. She figures out that to be that, I can't sell it, because if I sell it, there's a price to it, and then everything I ever paint will have a price to it in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be art. It's going to be a commodity. And I also can't give it away in a way that it has to be seen. I have to give it, I can't keep it. I can't keep it just for me, because that's just selfish, and that's not what art is. And so it has to be somewhere where other people like me can see it, so that they can be inspired by it like I have been inspired by it. So it has to, and I wrote that because that's in line with the dedication page of the book, and that was the pivotal point after my wife sat me down and, explained that it's just darkness, 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 darkness. There needs to be something else. You need to add something. You need to find something in yourself. And like she put it, like, you need to find hope and redemption here, not for the book, but for you. Because you're writing for you, and you need to find some light in you, because you have gone to a very dark place now. And the pivotal moment was that, because after that I sat down and I thought to myself, if this is my last book, who would I want it to be for? And I wrote the dedication page: to anyone who's young and wants to create something, do it. And the whole now story came from that. So the whole way that Louisa views the painting at the end, it's from the dedication page. It's from her trying to pay it forward and trying to find a way to say, all right, this meant so much to me, and it sent me on my way and on my journey, and now I wanted to do that for someone else. I want to hold the door for someone else.
I love that so much. We're coming up on time, so this is actually going to be our last question, but something we wanted to let you know is that we received not only questions from readers, but also statements that they wanted you to know how much your books mean to them and how much impact you've had on their lives with these books. And we're curious, do you think about that when you're writing, and how does it impact you as a person?
It impacts me a lot, and I don't handle it well. And I have to block it out, because I can't write if I'm thinking, like, I can't think about the fact that thousands of people are going to read this and judge it. I can't, because then I'm not going to write a word. I have a handful of people that I write for, and that's it. And I just write for them, and I'm just trying to make sense of myself and my brain. But it's incredibly nice when people say that it has meant something to them, and I think I feel at this point that I'm okay with A Man Called Ove having meant something to people, and I wrote that in 2012. So I guess it's a 13-year process for me. So it takes 13 years to make me feel like, okay, I'm okay with talking about this book now. I'm okay with talking about your emotions for this book. But no, it's fantastic. The thing I enjoy the most is when people have said that it started a conversation. When they come up and say, what, I read, like, there was a young woman when I was on tour this time who came up to me, and she said, I read Anxious People, and I highlighted a bunch of stuff. And then my dad came over. We have a very difficult relationship. And for whatever reason, I said, you should read this book. And she gave him the book. And she didn't think about the fact that she had highlighted things. And then he called her, and she said, this is the nicest thing you've ever done for me. Because he could read what she had highlighted, and that made him understand what she was going through. And he didn't have words for it, and she didn't have words for it, because depression is hard and anxiety is, weird, and it hurts, but in ways that you can't describe. And but the fact that she had highlighted things made him understand her, and they could point to a fictional example, and they could talk about that without it being personal, and without blame, and without guilt, and without, and they could find each other. And she just came to the signing to tell me that. And when things like that happen, I feel like, all right, maybe I did something right. Maybe maybe this was maybe I did find something, and it means the world to me. But it's that when people say that it started a conversation, that it, when people tell me that they, they used Beartown in school to talk about a sensitive subject, or they used, there was a woman who came up to me and said that she buried her dad with a copy of Amankoluva because it meant so much to their relationship, and it means a lot. But it's also a lot for me to take in, because I'm not like in a normal week I meet 7 people, 4 of them against my will. So it's a lot. It's once in a while it's a lot for my brain to take in, and I have it's a full-time job for me just dealing with me. So it is. I mean, it's wonderful, but it's also at times a little overwhelming. But but when it starts a conversation, when people say that this was like a door opening for me in this relationship, then that's it's the greatest compliment a writer can get.
Well, I think we all know that My Friends is going to be a book that starts many, many conversations. Fredrik, thank you so much for joining us today and for such a fantastic conversation. It was so great to get to speak to you. And thank you to all of the book club readers that joined us today. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend. And Fredrik, thank you so much again.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.